Hello everyone, it's Martin aka Anders, and today we're going to be covering Stage 1 Challengers 2 for North America. With Sentinels, Luminosity, Immortals, and XSET all already earning their way into the closed qualifier portion of this event, it was a bit of a bloodbath in the open, with tons of other North American staples trying to fight their way through. With that said, let's jump right into the numbers of it. Jumping right into the map statistics, it's a fairly standard breakdown for the North American map pool, albeit with less centricity than we've seen in recent events. There aren't any two-way ties really, and it's a clear 1 through 5 sequentially. We have Ascent taking the top spot for the first time in a while, and by a pretty significant margin at that, with 26.5%. It's followed by Bind at 21.5%, so already immediately out the gate a full 5% swing from first to second. Then we see a slightly smaller dip down to Haven in the third slot at 19.4%, a further dive down to 17.3% for Split, and last we have Icebox, which is coming in just below where we saw it in Challengers 1 in North America. As is the case with many of these single event breakdowns, the attack and defender sidedness of these maps is pretty suspect in terms of sample size, but just an interesting tidbit here is that all of them aired on the side of a defensive bias this event. And in the case of Ascent in particular, which was the only one that did have a measurable sample size really at more than a quarter of all of the maps played, it came in with the most pronounced defense side bias of the entire group. All of the others are such slim margins that with the sample size we have, anything is going to be too close to call. Moving on to the agent stats, I've changed this up a bit just to make it a little bit easier to follow. In the first column, we will have the agent pick rates for this event. In the second column, we will have the agent pick rates from the most recent event preceding this, so in this case, Challengers 1. In the third column, you'll have a graphic indicator, either an up arrow if it increased, a down arrow if it decreased, or a flat line if it was static across the two within a marginal amount of variance. And then in the fourth column, we will have the round win rate from this event. Still atop the ladder for North America, we have Omen coming in a little bit below where he was during Challengers 1, sliding down from just shy of 95% down to around 90 flat. Below him in the second slot, we see Sova almost at a dead steady rate. Below Sova, we see Jet with a similar slide to Omen, just a couple percent. Cypher will be on the tail of Jet here, sliding a couple of percent himself as well. And leaving that top 4 is where we see a very significant swing downward, a full 10-point drop from Cypher's 58% to Ray's at just shy of 49%, almost bang on from what she was in Challengers 1. Coming in at the 6th slot, we have Killjoy, a little bit up from where she was in the last event. No doubt this is somewhat proportional to the decrease in play that we're seeing with Cypher a bit up this list. Just below Killjoy we have Phoenix with an almost unchanged play rate. North America's love affair with that champion seems to be doing just fine. Following Phoenix we have Reyna just below by around 1%. After that we see again a fairly significant drop off, this time by over 10% to Sage at only 18.9%. While this is pretty par for the course in North America and essentially steady state from what we saw in Challengers 1, it's pretty crazy to think that over in Europe, over the exact same period of time, Sage was the 4th most played agent in the game with almost 2.5 times the play rate. The agent preference divergence between the two regions is still very, very pronounced. Sliding 8% and change from there, we have Breach, another stark contrast of the difference between EU and NA. Sky almost in a dead heat with Breach. Brimstone trailing both of them. North America really not showing the level of controller diversity that we're seeing in other regions right now. Viper coming in at just above 4.5%, again reinforcing that lack of controller diversity, even with Icebox showing a very significant percentage of the map pool. And Yoru with quite literally not a game. That will do us for the agents though, so over to compositions we go. Unfortunately, there isn't a lot to discuss here. North America's heavy reliance on the Cypher, Jet, Omen, Sova core continues in grand fashion. The only variation from it that we see here is in one instance where Cypher is switched out for a Killjoy, and one instance where a Jet is switched out for a Raze. but still that archetypal format where you're running traditional Sentinel with a Jet, an Omen, a Flasher, and a Sova. It's taking 4 of these 5 slots. The sole exception to that is this second comp we see with the Jet and Raze double dive combo, but other than that, it's that standard core with a dive, generally a Jet, and then a dedicated Flasher. And that will bring us to the composition of the event, which, I'll be honest, I didn't pick because it was anything amazing. In fact, I picked it because it was boring. And I did that because it highlights the continued reality of North American gameplay. We have Sentinel, Omen, Sova, double duelist, almost always with a Jet and a dedicated Flash, either a Reyna or a Phoenix. This composition here of Cypher, Reyna, Omen, Phoenix, Sova is actually one of the more varietal things that we see in North American play, which is truly mind-boggling that this is the example of what was breaking the mold. When a region's idea of variety is just a slightly different flavor of standard double duelist, that's not exactly enthralling. To their credit though, they definitely make it work. This comp in particular was played by Envy into a fully standard composition that was played by Sentinels in the grand final. And in general, what North America is lacking in variety, they tend to make up for, at least in part, in optimization. When you watch teams like your Genjis, your TSMs, your Sentinels, and your Envies playing with things like Phoenix and the way that they've optimized ult funneling on it and are using it in creative ways, you can see that there's a bit of method to the madness. The hitch only happens when it dawns on you that this is really the only style that's played at Tier 1 in North America, so there's no way to validity test that optimization against any other approach. Alright, and that will wrap us up here for Challengers 2 in North America. I'd love to hear down in the comments below, what's your take on this situation with NA and its really encapsulated double duelist metagame? The only region that we really see mirroring it to this extent is Brazil, and as we now have Masters 2 in Reykjavik, the first international land coming down the pipeline for Valorant, do you think that this is going to be able to keep up with the broader compositional diversity that regions like Europe and Korea are experienced with? Do you ultimately think that this optimization that North America's double duelist style has gone through is going to be able to trounce that when it comes to sitting down on stage? As always, if you're enjoying this content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and get those comments down below on your thoughts. Beyond that, if you're interested, I'm also going to be doing a live co-stream tomorrow. Funnily enough, it is the close for Challengers 3. I'll be walking through those games, giving my thoughts as we go. So that'll be at Anders TV on Twitch at 6 p.m. Eastern tomorrow evening. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.